Hi there, my name is Allison Thomas, and I will be leading today's professional development on how to best reach our students in today's digital era. So, um, as you can see, our title here is Staying Connected or Going Unplugged. Let's research a little more, but before we get started, I want to quickly go over today's purpose. So, repeat after me. Today we will explore educational technology to become better 21st century educators by discussing the changes, challenges, benefits, and resources available in tech ed today. Now that seems like an absolute mouthful, but don't worry. By the end of this lesson, your purpose will have been met. I promise. Alrighty. So moving on, I want you to think about one way technology in education has changed since you have started teaching. So how has technology changed in the last 20 years or so? And I also want you to think of one misconception that you have or something that you have heard of in regards to technology in education. Now, I'm going to give you a minute to think, and then we will share out. And for new teachers, if you feel stumped on this first question, consider thinking about technology in education and think about how it's changed since you were in school. So 20 years ago, maybe you were, in kindergarten or first grade. How has technology changed since then? So take a minute to yourself, come up with an answer to both of these questions, keep it locked in your mind, and we will share out in just a second. All right, nice. So, would anyone like to share something that they came up with or something that their neighbor came up with in regards to how technology has changed in the last 20 years or a misconception that is out there on it? Well, I loved hearing many of your responses, and I'm really glad to see that many of us have similar thoughts. I did anticipate some of these answers. So let's go ahead and look at what I have here on my T-chart. We have some changes and misconceptions. Change number 1. Technology integration is an expectation versus being just an option. We are going to definitely dive more into this one a little bit later in the presentation, but that is definitely a big change. Another big change is availability and accessibility of tech ed. 20 years ago, maybe there was one shared computer in the classroom. Now, in many classrooms, we see one-to-one devices being used, state-of-the-art smart boards and iPads and Chromebooks and amazing computer labs and science STEM research classes and things like that. So definitely more availability and accessibility. Other changes are we have more platforms, more tools, and other educational resources to help us. And 20 years ago, there wasn't as many useful platforms or tools available to us to integrate into the school day. There is definitely more professional development available. Our newer teachers may have seen a lot of tech ed in their own schooling when they received their credential. That you can get master's degrees in instructional technology. You can go to district trainings and things of such. As well as the biggest change, there's a big change in students. So 20 years ago, students were not as tech savvy as they are today. The expectation for use of tech in school has changed. And a lot of that driving force comes from the change in students and what they enjoy learning with. Next is misconceptions. Let's go ahead and talk about those. Some of the ones that I have anticipated are students get too much tech time as is. Why do they need more technology? They already get so much of it at home. They're so attached. We're going to talk about that one a little later in the presentation. technology is a distraction. I've heard that a lot. We are also going to address that misconception later on. It limits social interactions, and it is too expensive. We have taught without it for years, so why spend money on it now? Those are all really big factors and misconceptions in the world of tech ed, and we are going to, like I said, address most of those later on. So I want you to take a minute and read this quote to yourself. All right, so in the last slide, we talked about so many ways that technology in education has changed in the past 20 years or so. Hearing the word change, however, could sound quite scary to many, so the advancements and adoption of new technologies have severely changed societal norms, and I think it is best to consider these changes as more as positive advancements that are fulfilling the needs of our now 21st century learners. There are 3 ways teachers should utilize technology inside the classroom. 1. Teachers can use technology inside the classroom as an instructional tool to present lessons and create unique and interactive learning experiences. Teachers can also utilize technology outside the classroom. They can use it to manage day-to-day professional responsibilities, such as taking attendance, grading, tracking data, and staying connected with students and their families. How many of you use something like the Remind app or Class Dojo? Look at you, you're already utilizing technology. Nice job. Third, teachers should be utilizing technology inside and outside the classroom. By this, I mean teachers should be learning resources that promote academic learning both during class time and outside the school day. That means maybe you're assigning a e-book to read as homework if you're teaching some of the upper grades. Or perhaps instead of assigning boring sheets of paper homework, you're assigning something digital that the kids can do, create a project for homework, or maybe you are attending an online professional development like the one today, meaning you are promoting academic learning outside of class time. Now, I have a little QR code down there on the bottom right. Please later feel free to scan the QR code for a great video from Iowa PBS. It gives insight from a school district in Iowa that is using tech, and it's transforming the teaching and the way the classroom looks and so forth. So that was a really interesting video. I highly suggest you check that out later. So after all of that, what do you think? Do you still see tech as a positive thing, or do you still see it as troubling? Well, I think we need to dive into some of those misconceptions that we touched on earlier to help us really decide if technology is useful or not useful in our classrooms. Here we go. Once again, go ahead and really quick read the quote there at the top to yourself. I'll give you a second. Great. So there are so many misconceptions about educational technology, as we addressed in the first slide. But the important thing to keep in mind is, are these misconceptions true, or are they just negative thoughts that teachers use as an excuse to avoid learning something new? This quote above that I just had you read is so powerful because it really does hit most of the misconceptions mentioned previously right on the nose. Technology is, in fact, a valuable tool and resource for educators, students, and parents alike. Let's look at 3 examples of misconceptions we talked about earlier and compare them to the ways that teachers should be seeing them. The first is that technology is a distraction. Well, You're right, technology could be a distraction, such as this little girl in the picture is looking at her reflection in the mirror and fiddling with the keyboard. But if you are implementing technology correctly, teaching students how to be proper digital citizens, and really setting expectations on what engagement should look like in the classroom when using technology, you should be getting results like this bottom picture as opposed to the one in the top picture. Now, of course, there's always that minute of burnout, and kids get burnt out just like adults do, and they might twiddle their thumbs around on a device, but as long as the expectations are in place and students are learning what it means to be good digital citizens, they should know that they should be using their device correctly, as opposed to it being a distraction. Second, one of the big misconceptions is that technology limits social interactions amongst peers. Now, I see where that could be seen as true, as in this top picture, these two girls look like they're in class, but they're on their phones. Now, that goes back to setting expectations. When you assign a project or when students are working in small groups, they should know, are they talking to their peers? Are they working alone? Should they have a cell phone out? If a cell phone is out, does it have a purpose to be out? Or are we just texting? So in this bottom picture here, I love it because you can see the students are working on a project. They have their devices out, but they're collaborating. And what's so special and unique about technology and collaboration is that it gives students the ability to have social interactions the way that they would later on in life when they are in the job field, when they are in college, and they're able to bounce ideas off of each other, all because of technology. So saying that it limits student interaction is definitely a misconception. And third, students already get too much technology. But is there ever enough technology? In today's world, we are connected to our device 24/7, whether it's talking on the phone or sending an email to work or completing a project for a master's program. Learning how to juggle how much is too much and when it's time to stop is just part of teaching students how to become great digital citizens. Having digital literacy, being able for students to differentiate, okay, my work here is done, I need to unplug. And the goal after students have gone through K-12 is to have them be aware and alert of how much is too much, because technology it surrounds us daily. So they need to know, and we need to teach them when enough is enough and when it's appropriate to use technology and when it's time to give it up. So we are almost done here. But really quick, I want to take a look at a tool that teachers can use to determine which technology tools are appropriate for each different learning occasion. I have found a fantastic website that is user-friendly, and let's dive a little deeper into that, and then we will open it up to questions. I'm sure some of you are familiar with Common Sense Education. If you are not, it is another great tool for teaching students digital citizenship. I've talked about that in a previous presentation that I could have linked down in the resources down below. However, today I'm going to be talking in light of EdTech reviews. So you come to the Common Sense website, you click for educators, and you are going to click EdTech reviews and EdTech reviews again. And it will take you to this page. So this page is a 21st century teacher's dream. Have you ever been in a situation where you really wanted to incorporate some sort of technology in a specific content area, but you just didn't know what to pick? Because let's be real, technology sometimes in education can be extremely overwhelming, and this is going to put your mind at ease when it comes to determine the risk and benefits of certain technologies for particular assignments. So there's one of two options. Say option one, say you teach kindergarten, okay? We'll click kindergarten. And you know that your students really need access to reading. They're not being read to at home, and you're just not sure what you can do as a teacher to make sure that the students are being exposed to literature. You can click English Language Arts, and while that loads, I'm just going to bring you down here. You can select things like you only want to see free options. You want to see things for certain platforms. Say in your classroom, you're only using iPads. You can click iPads and it'll find you apps instead of finding you, say, websites. So here you go. You have all these amazing options for English Language Arts or reading in a kindergarten classroom. So a few that I saw right off the bat. This one, Noisy Books, stood out to me. Why? Because you can see here in this description, it says, this is an app that adds effects to stories, and it is better in theory than in practice. I got a 2-star rating. People aren't big fans of it, I guess. So maybe you heard about Noisy Books, you see this, you determine, hey, that's not the best fit for my students. So you keep scrolling. Wow, Epic Books. This looks great. Got 5 stars on both fronts. It looks like it's good on multiple platforms. It's free to try. It's great for K through 5. Let me learn more. And it's free, expansive digital library. Wow, a digital library? That sounds exactly like what I'm looking for. Go ahead and click it. And it goes into super in-depth detail all about the app. So it shows you what the app looks like, or the website looks like when you log on. It also shows the pros of the website, the cons, and the bottom line. You continue to scroll. Say you are like, okay, this looks cool, but how am I going to teach with this tool? Well, they cover that information as well. They also cover what it is it good for learning? And my favorite part of all of it is that they talk about, they have a community ratings tab. So teachers, just like you and I, get to post reviews, and you get to see firsthand from other educators if these tools are good or bad for what you are looking for. So does anyone have any questions before we wrap this up? Now the references are here. If you want to go back to them, don't forget there's that QR code over on the 4th slide, I believe it is. Check that video out by Iowa PBS. And I also left a link to a other professional development that I have done in the past, all about creating a positive online learning environment for our students. That is the first link there on our references page. I highly recommend you check that out. And if there are no more questions, I will leave you be. And please feel free to reach out via email if you happen to come up with something, happen to come up with a question later on. Thank you.